So hey y'all, I just came across this video, and when I watched it, I was only maybe like 5 minutes in, and I realized I needed to make a video about this. And I hope I'm not all over the place, but in the last week or so, I had a lot of things that come back to what Mark Paseo is saying in this video. Now, for anybody who's walked with me for an amount of time, you know that I teach universal law and principles. I'm also what you would call an Ascension guide. And some individuals may not necessarily understand or know what's the difference between spiritual teaching and Ascension teaching. And I was speaking to one of the goddesses the other day, and I was explaining to her that spirituality and those teachings are a little different. When you get into Ascension teaching, there are differences, and the reason why there are differences is because Ascension means that you're about to graduate out of this realm. Now, if you know and understand that the material plane is a teaching simulator or simulation, it's holographic, and you're here to learn certain things. So if you've ever heard that in this realm things are an illusion, everything is really an illusion, but it's to bring you to certain levels, it's to bring you to certain lessons so that you can learn certain things and move forward. However, in this realm, it has been hijacked by some negative entities who seek to keep you here and unaware of the rules that are at play here in this dimension. So I saw a posting, and it was very disheartening, and in my opinion it was very disrespectful. Now that's just my personal opinion, no shade to the individual, because I understand where they are on a spiritual level. When we begin to look at this video, you're going to see where the gentleman mentions there are people who are down in the debt slave realm or the debt slave frequency, and those are the sheep, and they don't know any better. As a matter of fact, they don't know what they don't know. All right. That brings me to this point. In the past, there have always been what's called mystery schools and occult wisdom or knowledge that was not given to the masses. The reason why it was set up that way was because there's information that has been hidden and distorted in the planet. And so it prevents individuals from coming to the true understanding or understanding of what the real truth is. The real truth are the universal laws and principles, which are immutable. I teach universal laws and principles. Religion has given a distorted version of the universal laws and principles. So individuals think that, okay, if I don't do this, this, and this, I'll make it into heaven or I'll ascend. And that's not true. Yeshua the Christ, not Jesus. Yeshua the Christ had actually incarnated into the planet. And he was not the only one. He incarnated into the planet in order to teach his brethren, the ones who had been stuck here, who had been stuck in this material realm, to teach them how to get out, and that it required transmutation of their vessel, because DNA is a soul cage. And so since their etheric essences had been captured and put into flesh bodies, carbon bodies, a transformation had to take place in order for them to be able to ascend. That is the difference between spiritual teachings and Ascension teachings. Yeshua was trying to teach them how to ascend, which is really an ascension. Ascension, when you hear people talking about ascension, and I use the term simply for people for identification purposes, but when you hear people talking and teaching ascension, that's the false light version, okay? The true version is Ascension, because Ascension takes place inward, from inside the body. You have to do your inner work in order to ascend. So The reason why I'm telling y'all that is because I came across a post, but again, it was from an individual who really wasn't awake. They're actually sleepwalking. No disrespect or shade to the individual, even though they were very disrespectful to the true teachers who are here and who are simply trying to bring information into this realm to enlighten the individuals who are ready for ascension or ascension, to elevate to the next dimension or density. And the individual went on to pretty much say, nobody really knows what the hell they talking about. I do what I want to do. And, you know, I mean, it was just completely disrespectful, distasteful. And, but I understand. So I wanted to kind of bring some clarity to the individuals who may feel that way, because as we move forward and as these different energies come in, individuals who have not integrated this information, who have not done enough inner work in order to realize truths, realize ultimate truths, and integrated them and become a part of them, as time goes on, they're going to feel like the rug is being ripped from up under them. Everything they believe, all their thoughts, all their beliefs and things that they thought they knew is going to be ripped from up under them, and they're going to collectively walk through what's called the dark night of the soul. So you're going to start to see people flip out, and we were already noticing it. You're going to start to see people flipping out. You're going to start to see people getting very agitated, very angry, because all of a sudden none of this makes sense. What I thought I knew over here, now they're telling me it's wrong. And I told y'all, I tried to prepare my soul family for that. I said there's a time coming where the people who you thought knew or had answers, if you grabbed a hold of them and tried to use them as your crutch and as somebody, you know, that you could trust and believe in, as things begin to go haywire, when you start to see them fall, when they start falling away, the information starts crumbling, you're going to realize that all of this was an illusion, and it's going to disappear like a vapor. And if you have not done the work that I came in here to try and teach you, so that you could connect to your highest guidance, which is your essential spiritual GPS system, if you have not done that work, it's going to get very scary. People are going to lash out at one another. They're going to lash out at the people they thought they could trust and depend on for spiritual guidance. The reason why that's necessary is simply because holding on to anybody or anything outside of you, you can't do it. When it's time for you to graduate out of a realm, you have to be tested, or you have to know what you know, and it has to be a part of you, and you will be tested. This is what's about to happen now. Everybody's getting ready to be tested on all their spiritual beliefs and all their beliefs that they've held true up until this point. They're going to find out that a lot of that stuff was not real, and then what you going to do? Because at the end of the day, there is nothing true but what your your highest guidance teaches you, and what you integrate within your own spiritual being. Now, I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was telling him, I said, he was telling me about reels on social media, and he was saying, I think it's on Facebook, and he was saying how he got so many views on reels and that he qualified for monetization and everything because he was getting so many views on his reels. And I said, well, what is that? And he was saying, well, if you go on stories, then it's scroll down and it's like these little clips of information. And I said, that should tell you about the attention span of humanity. Because if you post a video that is in depth, that's long, that's actually teaching somebody something, people have grown accustomed to not even clicking on those. If they see that it's longer than 10 minutes, they won't even click on them. But I told my husband, I said, I understand this. I understand this as a trick of the enemy. It's a trap of the enemy, because wisdom is not given in little chunks and nuggets like that. You can't get wisdom like that. It takes study. This is why they had mystery schools. There were certain individuals who would incarnate in secretly And I'll discuss who those individuals are in a different post. But they would incarnate in and they would be privy to this wisdom. Their blood has a certain frequency that allows them to get downloads or information from the super consciousness, the divine realms, whereas everybody else was cut off because this beast has set up all these frequency fences where information cannot get in. But there are certain individuals who can download information through the neutrinos that come in through the sun. And those entities, or these entities, the negative ones, do not have the technology in order to stop that. They can't interfere. They can't run interference on a neutrino that's coming in. So individuals who have those, who have that particular frequency of blood can get information. I'm one of those individuals. So I was tasked to come in, sneak in, be incarnated in, meaning have to be born in, and give that information. I got to a certain age and all of a sudden information started flooding in. I would just wake up knowing things that I had no way of knowing. And I felt compelled to tell, like I couldn't sleep. I would be pacing my floor. I could not sleep unless I came and posted and told people, and I was just putting out the warning. It was relentless for like 3 or 4 years. And I just kept posting because I could not get rest. I would only sleep every 2 weeks. I could not sleep unless I was putting the information out. Well, I'll put it this way. I could not rest unless I put the information out. Then I would be able to sleep for maybe 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. And then I would be back up posting and I could go to sleep a little bit, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And that's how it would be for 2 weeks. Then I would be allowed to sleep the entire weekend, every other weekend. All right. So I told y'all that because I want y'all to understand, my task, my mission, a part of my mission is to bring information into this material realm to the ones who are ready for it. Everybody, this is not information for everybody. It's not. And I say that without prejudice. I'm not trying to, isolate anybody out, marginalize anybody. But just like a university or just like a school, you have grades and levels. People who are on a 3rd grade, 4th grade level are not ready for the things that I'm teaching because this is post grad. Okay. This is post grad. And unfortunately, individuals who find their way over here can't assimilate and they can't grab a hold of the information and no matter how much they try, and then they get mad and they lash out at me, and I don't appreciate it, but at the same time, I understand it. I understand what it is, and I still love these individuals, but in their ignorance, they don't know any better. In their ignorance, they do not know any better because, if I'm a grad school teacher and somebody in 2nd grade comes up and tries to learn what I'm teaching, it may look interesting, but they can't process. They don't have the spiritual and mental capacity in order to take in that information. They haven't had enough life lessons. They haven't had enough spiritual lessons in order to take this information and understand it. And understand this. Wisdom is for everybody, but your highest guidance knows when you're ready for certain things. That's why I tell the story of how I came across the Kabbalion one time, and I love information. So I'm looking at the Kabbalion, trying my best to understand it, and I could not make heads or tails of the Kabbalion. And then I went through a series of events and different types of experiences in my own personal life. And I was brought back to the Kabbalion. This time, my highest guidance took me to it. And I started looking at it bits and pieces. And I was able to make sense of it based on experiences that I had gone through. I was legitimately like, oh my gosh, this is when I went through this and this. And I experienced this when me and my husband got into this situation. And I was able to understand rather than understand. Because when you trying to understand stuff, you're really trying to understand with your ego. And when you're understanding from a higher perspective, the highest guidance is trying to show you, you get understanding and wisdom plus, and information plus wisdom. Information plus experience equals wisdom. I'll keep saying that over and over. So when I was just trying to understand it, it was information, right? Once I went through my personal experiences, And then I came back and looked at the information. It became wisdom. Now I was able to integrate it. I was able to apply it to my life because I understood everything the Kabbalion was teaching me from a personal level. And that's what has to take place. And that's why right now on this material realm, when we're in a stellar activation cycle, it's time for the graduates to move on, right? These entities got their claws in a lot of you all, and they're setting up all of these traps. And because you don't know what you don't know, you are stumbling into these traps. It's not my job to run anybody down. It's not my job to convince anybody of what they need to be doing. That's why I say I need to know when you find me, you either find me by one or two ways. Either the information grabs your ego attention and you just want to gather information for the sake of knowing, or your highest guidance has sent you to me because it's time for you to get this information so that you can begin to apply it and do what's necessary to cause change in your material life so that you can move forward. People don't understand that. They don't understand that. And so, like I said, you get little posts where people are throwing this subtle shade because they're frustrated that they really don't have a firm hold on anything. And that's really what the dark night of the soul is. It's ripping all the false information from up under you. And you have to figure out what's true for you. But if you're not connected to your higher guidance, you'll be tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. I see people doing that I've seen people on social media been doing that for years. This is one of the reasons why I do not listen to everybody. I don't listen. People send me stuff all day and I will not look at it. I may look at the first maybe 1-2 minutes and then I don't look at the rest. Unless it's something that confirms something that I've already been told, like co-signing. I won't look at it. And that's no disrespect to nobody, but I know my truth and I want to be able to hear my inner guidance. I want to hear that still small voice that tells me what's true for me. And I'm not saying that each and every person have different truths, but when you're on different levels of consciousness, there are things that you do not know that you will know once you scale a few more consciousness levels. Okay, so it's things that may not be true for you down there, but when you get, up to where I am and above me, there will be things that you will come into the knowledge of. Okay, so it's not that we have different truths, it's just that we're on different levels of consciousness and things become available to us as we go higher and higher. So saying all that to say, I'm seeing the gag on humanity is that they brought in video games. All of a sudden they brought in internet. All of a sudden, as if scrolling down Facebook wasn't enough, they sped it up. Now you got stories popping up. And I used to be I was like, where is the little thing where I could get rid of this? It's right up in your face to tempt you. You can't even opt out of it because I don't be wanting to see that. But you see people little pictures and it makes you want to click on it, and before you know it, you done scroll through all these darn stories, just blips of information, no wisdom. That's why I say information abounds, and we think that having information is great. It's not. Having wisdom is great, and wisdom takes time to cultivate. So your captors, your controllers, they know that. So we went from stories, now we got reels, now we got TikTok, and it's all these little blips of information that keep you forever wanting the next thing and the next thing and the next thing because you're not satisfied. You're not being fed nothing but, like I like to say, cake. That's it. But I understand and understand that it's a part of the process, and the people that get swayed and get taken in by those little things, and I know it's hard because I've done it too. I've gotten over into TikTok, and before I know it, hours done gone by, and I done looked at absolutely nothing that's so edifying. A bunch of junk, how to make stuff. I'll look over there for a few recipes when that's what I'm doing, but for the most part, You're not getting, I mean, they're giving information, and most people who just want information and not wisdom, they fall into the trap and they love it. All they do is gather, 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 and on to the next thing, and they're never internalizing. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let y'all hear this video, probably 5 minutes of it, and then I'll wrap it up. But I will put the link down here so you can come back and listen. I really adore and appreciate this man. He does not get any respect. Mark Passio, he doesn't get any respect, and I believe that the controllers actually killed his wife last year to make an example out of him, because he is literally here. He's somebody like me who is trying to give you the true wisdom and knowledge. Oh, and I just want to touch back. Let me say this. I want to touch back because of the fact that eating of the meat was mentioned, and Mark Passio does talk about this. The reason why I go so hard on eating of the meat was because it was pressed upon me by my higher guidance to tell you and press it upon you. What y'all don't know and don't realize, and like I said, the person who made the post it was so disrespectful, but in the end, they will come to understand why. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. This is a free will realm. There is nobody who's going to twist your arm and make you do anything. In this realm, you can do whatever you want to do. This is the motto. All things are permissible, but everything is not beneficial. So what y'all don't know, a lot of people don't know, is the law of cause and effect is in effect on this planet. Free will and being able to do what you want to do does not release you from the consequences of your choices and your behaviors, okay? So when we eat another sentient being, and I've explained this over and over, and I'm explaining it for the new people. When we eat a sentient being, you now put yourself under or in a karmic cycle of cause and effect, which says, if I agree to eat another sentient being, I myself agree to be eaten. If I eat another sentient being's offspring, I agree to my offspring being eaten. So understand, we're in the time of harvest, and this is not to scare nobody. If you scared, get on off the post, because I'm going to teach it no matter what. We're in the time of the harvest. Okay, I'm going to make another video right behind this that's going to show you some of the things that's being hidden that I've told you was going to happen. Beasts are coming up out the ground. I told y'all that my higher guidance, that when I was posting and getting all this wisdom, these downloads, one of the things they said was there's going to be fowl that come out the air, and there are going to be beasts that come out the ground that are going to hunt. The ones that come out the ground are going to be blind, and they're going to hunt by frequency, vibration, and smell. Listen to me. The very first thing I started teaching my soul family was stop eating the meat and detox. You want to know why? Not so you can look good and feel great. It was to get the scent of death out your body, number one, because you are walking cesspool. Y'all can't smell each other, but when you come from different realms, or an animal that's coming from up underground can smell you, especially if they're down there and they're being hungry. Remember, all these things that's been taking place in those tunnels, they've been removing their food supply. When those things come up, they're going to be ravenous, and they're going to be looking for a food source. If you have animal flesh rotting in your colon and rotting in your intestines, guess what you're going to smell like? The next meal. Second thing, we detox and we remove the meat in order to raise our frequency, because meat, eating another sentient being, changes you into a chimera, and it drops your frequency very low. If you know how bats sense prey, they sense prey by what? Sonar. They can hear. Guess what? What you don't realize is that when you resonate at a low frequency, you're audible. You have a sound. You're audible. However, when you resonate at a very high frequency, you either sound like a high-pitched squeal that repels, or your frequency is invisible. It cannot be detected. This is why I kept saying, my higher guidance keeps saying, there will be a time where some individuals will simply be able to walk by the creatures, or the creatures pass right by them and eat the person next to them. And I know that sounds super fantastic. You can't even believe it. It's out of this world. I'm telling you what I was told to tell you. You can believe it or you cannot. That's up to you. That was why we were told. That was one of the main reasons, is so that you can get yourself out of the harvest red zone. Get yourself out of the harvest red zone so you won't be a Scooby snack for what's ever coming out this ground soon. Okay? Was already hunting up here. I may include it in this video, probably not. Well, anyway, let me let you listen to the 5 minutes of this. I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of individuals think that I'm just here playing. Let me tell you something. I have been censored beyond censored, to the point to where I have lost majority of my soul family because they just tired of jumping through hoops and trying to follow me from one platform to the next. I get that. That's a part of the process. That's a part of the pruning process. And as I move into more 5D teachings, I'm going to take on a whole new platform of followers and people who are ready to learn now the new ways of New Earth and how we're going to have to create that. So yeah, old people are going to stay behind. That don't mean I love them. I mean, I don't love them or I love them any less than I did before. It's just a time for the parting of ways. I sent everybody the invitation. Some people got it, and I believe some people just didn't even see it because it's not in their frequency realm anymore. So as we move forward, like I said, this is going to be the 5D teachings. Some people are going to stick with it, some people aren't. But whatever happens, it's a benevolent, because I know that my teachings are benevolent. And they're not low-hanging fruit. Everybody's not going to be able to get it. Everybody's not going to be able to stick with it because it's not meant for everybody. There are only a few Ascension, or no, not Ascension, excuse me. There are only a few right now. New Earth, way showers, vanguards, and ambassadors. The ones who will create the foundation before the masses, the ones who are going to be on the 4D, fourth density plane, that's the bridge. Those individuals going to stay there for a time. They're going to stay there for a time because they have to learn love. Love is going to be taught on 4D, on the 4D bridge, Rainbow Bridge, as a matter of fact, where they learn unity, where they learn to come together, no matter what your color, race, gender, no matter what that stuff is. All that stuff that divided us in 3D has to be dissolved in 4D before you make it to 5D. But the individuals who graduating, who getting it, who doing the work, will be the vanguards, way showers, light leaders, ambassadors of the New Earth. Okay, I had the blueprint I got the blueprint maybe 10 years ago, and at the time I could not fathom, and I see it now. I see it happening now, and I'm so grateful and I'm so honored to be a part of it, and to, even if it's just 2 people that step over. I did my job. I touched a lot of individuals, but everybody has to make their own decisions. It's free will choice for everybody to step through. That's why people always throwing around the words chosen ones. Everybody's not a chosen one. However, everybody is given the opportunity to choose to be a chosen one. You're chosen based on what you choose to do. Your choices and behaviors determine if you're a chosen one. So the ones who choose to do the ascension work are the ones who gonna move forward first. And it's people who want to spiritually bypass the hard work, and they want to get the accolades and they want to get the rewards. But this doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to do the work. You have to do the work to get the reward. So right now we are in a karmic cycle. We're in the part of a karmic cycle where everybody is going to begin to reap what they've been sowing, whether it's good or bad. So I know I've been reaping good things. I've been giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving to even people who didn't, in my opinion, I didn't feel like they deserved it. But that's not for me to say. That's just my human side. I didn't feel like they deserved it, but I had to give them the information. I had to keep them plugged in. When I wanted to cut people off, I still had to work with them so that they had the opportunity to do what they needed to do. And it was up to them if they got right to the gate and fumbled the ball. That's not my problem. I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm going to reap my rewards stepping over into 5D. So let's go ahead and play this video so y'all can see how I came to this understanding. Hold on.
These are eternal truths. really, really deep that has been hidden from humanity for millennia. This is what they don't want you to know. The real law of attraction and how to apply it in your life. Many people will be familiar with the New Age variants of the so-called law or laws of attraction. And this is going to differ quite widely from what people have heard in the New Age community, in the New Age movement regarding what the law or laws of attraction are. These are the real laws of attraction you're going to be hearing today and hopefully understanding today. Human beings everywhere say that they want certain things in their life. And they say that they want certain things to be present for all humanity. We say we want certain conditions to be present for ourselves and our species as a whole. And we say we want things such as happiness, health, peace, prosperity, freedom, etc. And all these things are great things to aspire to. And we say we want them. Most people will say and tell you we want these things. There are requirements for obtaining the conditions that we say we want. Requirement exists in nature. It does exist. If you want something to be different than the way that it already is, than the default conditions, then requirement exists. If you're okay with things being the way that they are now, requirement doesn't exist. There are no requirements to creating change. You just accept the default conditions the way they are now and go on with your existence and accept it's going to be this way and possibly get worse. But if you want real change to happen, requirements exist. And this is what many New Age teachers will not tell you, or they'll outright deny that requirements exist for creating real change. Specific requirements exist in order for human beings to obtain the conditions that they say they want. If the requirements for obtaining those conditions are not met, those conditions do not just magically manifest by magical means automatically. That's not how it works. This is a key concept to understand. We need to know certain things. Knowledge is required. Knowledge. Knowledge that will spur us to action. That's what's required. This knowledge is occulted, meaning hidden. But what you have to understand right off the bat is that the word occult, it's simply derived from Latin, the Latin adjective occultus. Occultus in Latin means hidden, hidden from sight. The information regarding natural law is occulted knowledge. It is knowledge that has been hidden from humanity. It's held by the few, which is represented here at the top of this pyramid. You can look at this as a pyramid representing knowledge or ignorance. At the top of the pyramid, you have knowledge. The higher you go in the pyramid, the more knowledge. But the pyramid tapers because at the top, very few people understand that information. Down here, you have no knowledge, the ignorant masses. What is this occulted knowledge? Occult knowledge constitutes two things. There's two general bodies of occult knowledge. In the actual mystery traditions and in occult schools, they talk about these as arcana, A-R-C-A-N-A. The word arcana is also Latin. It means knowledge. It means it's dealing with the individual units of consciousness. The human psyche, the first major body of occult knowledge, constitutes knowledge of human consciousness, how it works, how it operates, what our motivations are. The second body of occult knowledge is called the greater arcana or the major arcana. And what these natural laws are unseen and universal spiritual laws which govern the consequences of behavior for intelligent species, for beings that are capable of coming to their understanding. It's been called karma, karmic law, in many Middle Eastern and Eastern traditions. It has been called in some of the Western traditions and Christian traditions moral law. Religionists have called it God's law. Why is this knowledge hidden away from people? And there's a reason for that. In order to create and maintain a power differential. They know how something works, like how human consciousness works, how human motivations work, how human perceptions work, how human beings can be manipulated. This is the thing that all the distractions are there for, to keep you from learning. The endless trivialities, the nonsense you hear on the news, all the video games, all of the nonsense television. It's all there to keep people from understanding this. Truth versus human perception. See these white lines? Imagine these white lines that do not waver as truth. And imagine that the perception that is set against the truth, we're going to take three different individuals. This is individual A, this is individual B, this is individual C. Their ability to perceive what has occurred and what is occurring is what I would refer to as consciousness. If your consciousness is high, meaning it's at a high frequency, that means you're going to have more of an ability to understand and recognize the patterns. If your consciousness is low, you're at a low frequency, you're going to see the pattern less. The longer the wavelength, the shorter the frequency. What that means is how frequently is it going to be intercepting the line that represents truth. The higher the frequency, the more in tune with truth we are. What would happen if this frequency became infinitely high? It would be indistinguishable from a line. And therefore, someone would be aligned to that which is their perception of reality being accurate. Think about this in sound, right? You hear a low bass tone, it's like, then it goes up, and it would go eventually outside the range of human hearing because the frequency went so high. Same concept here. The higher the frequency, the higher the perception of reality, the quality of the perception is going to be. The concept to keep in mind here is perception is not reality.
Okay, I just want to make note of that because, hold on y'all, hope y'all are not getting a lot of feedback. My microphone, I got a different microphone, and usually I could turn the sound off, so I hope we're not getting feedback. But I wanted to make mention of that because that's what I just talked about, and I hadn't watched this video. Remember I said I had only watched like the first 3 to 5 minutes, and I was like, I need to make a video. He just explained to you about the frequency, the pitch of the frequency, how after the frequency gets so high you can't hear it. He just explained why the people with low frequency in the red zone, where you saw that red line, why they are going to be harvested. That's the red zone. They're going to be harvested because essentially they're asleep. They're asleep. They have not awakened. Consciousness is evolution. Consciousness is evolution. So if you're not conscious, you do not evolve. Does that make sense? Okay, so let him go ahead and speak.
Of the brain stem right here, and this part of the brain is called the cerebellum. These two components together essentially comprise the R complex. The R complex is the lowest consciousness part of the brain. We don't do any thinking with this part of the brain. It's the reactive part of the brain. It reacts to stimulus. It's the stimulus response mechanism. In this middle part of the brain, these are all the different glands like the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the pituitary and pineal glands, etc., that comprise the midbrain or the limbic system. All human emotions are facilitated, are made possible by this part of the brain. The neocortex is the outer casing, basically, of the telencephalon, the higher brain. What you have to understand about the telencephalon, or the hemispheres of the brain, is that they're, first of all, bilaterally symmetrical, and they generally control different functions of thought. But in general, the left hemisphere of the brain is what governs logic, analytical thought, and scientific and mathematical thinking, and also linear thought processes. The right side of the brain, the right hemisphere, governs or generally facilitates and makes possible human creativity, all the emotional dynamics of the human being, holistic thought, being able to see the big picture thinking, pattern recognition, and then things like compassion, nurturing, care. Now, if this left part of the brain becomes chronically dominant, the masculine part of the brain, and I'm putting these symbols here, this is an ancient archetypal symbol called the blade. It's a simple upward pointing triangle. And this downward pointing triangle is another ancient archetypal symbol that was referred to in the ancient world as the chalice, the cup, etc. Okay? And this was a rudimentary phallic symbol, and this was a rudimentary womb symbol, representing the male and the female. The idea is to keep a balance between these two. When we have a balance between the two, that's when we're operating on all cylinders, so to speak. That's when real consciousness and pattern recognition is developed. And that's when real morality and ethical considerations are also created within the personality, within the being. People have equated intelligence with intellect, especially in the Western society. All right? Intellect is not intelligence. Intelligence comprises more than intellect. Intellect is left brain understanding. True intelligence is holistic understanding, with the right brain included in the process, the nurturing, compassionate, creative, and intuitive sides of the consciousness together with the intellectual aspect of the consciousness. And you can see this in the word, intelligence, right? Intella is where intellect comes from, okay? And gens, G-E-N-C-E, comes from the Latin verb generare. Generare means to generate or to create. So it's the creative aspect of the personality, or the right brain. So intellect plus creativity, logical thinking plus nurturing and compassion. That's real intelligence, holistic intelligence. And most people in our society are not in holistic intelligence. They're in one form of brain imbalance or the other. If a human left brain hemisphere becomes chronically dominant, the R complex will take over executive function of the brain, and the person will become ruled by selfishness and base desires. And they will develop a personality that is based in domination and control. Conversely, if a human being's right brain hemisphere becomes chronically dominant, the limbic system will take over executive function of the whole brain, and the person will become ruled by their own emotions and develop a personality that is based in submissiveness and naivete. The general principles of natural law. Natural law is expressed through 7 basic underlying principles, plus what I have referred to as an 8th or hidden principle, which you hear very few other researchers, even people who are studying this from the occult perspective, who are studying this from the consequentialism perspective, you very hear them incorporate the 8th and all-encompassing principle. This 8th principle, which I call the lost principle, binds all the other 7 principles together. These principles together constitute a master key through which universal wisdom, including the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining what we desire, is then unveiled or de-occulted. These are the 7 general principles of natural law: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. The principle of mentalism states that the all, everything in creation, is actually a manifestation of mind. The principle of correspondence states that that which is above is similar or like to that which is below. So what this means is, it's a mirror, okay? The above is like the below is like the above. The principle of vibration simply states that there is no such thing as rest. Everything vibrates, and at the most fundamental level, the universe and every single thing which comprises it is ultimately pure vibratory energy that is manifesting itself in different ways, different frequencies, different vibratory forms. The principle of polarity states that everything has a dual nature to it. There are polarities in everything that exists, okay? Everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. However, opposites, they are identical in nature, but they're different in degree. The principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. Everything has a rhythm to it, or a swing to it. There's tendencies that exist in energy. The pendulum swing manifests in everything that we undergo, everything that we perceive. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. It's just an opposite. It's perceived as an opposite. Rhythm will compensate. This is the principle here in natural law that most fits in with how I'm using the term natural law today. Cause and effect. So the principle of cause and effect simply states that every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. Every single thing that occurs happens according to law. Chance is a name for a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. You cannot change the past. You can change what it is starting now and make sure that it gets changed in the future. But right now, what is the truth, and all you can do is accept that or reject it. The final principle of the 7 principles of natural law are gender. Again, I'm going to talk about an 8th lost one. Gender exists in everything. Everything has its masculine and its feminine components or principles. We've already seen that when it comes to the human brain, consciousness, worldview, etc. Gender manifests on all planes of existence: spiritual, mental, physical, everything. This next section is what I call the lost principle. This is the 8th principle of natural law, which binds all of the other principles together. It's the container inside which all the other principles fit very nicely and neatly. However, it's lost because we're not exercising it. See, we already looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 principles of natural law. And there they are represented by these circles overlapping each other. Here's the 8th circle, the seed of life. Now, what happens from a seed? It grows. It generates something. It creates something. Here's what that principle is. It's the 8th or the lost principle. And it's the thing that has to be present in order for any change to manifest itself. Here's what the 8th principle is. It is known as the generative principle, or the principle which governs creation, which actually is the causal factor that goes into effect and generates the result that we say that we want. But what's the real term for it? Now, most people will say it's love. The generative principle is care. This is different than compassion. People say, why don't you use the word compassion? Because that's not what I'm talking about. It is a different concept than compassion, or even what I would describe as love. This means, what are you giving attention and helping to grow? What are you focusing upon? Because what you're focusing upon, that's what's ultimately getting generated, getting created, and growing. And this doesn't mean be ignorant of what's going on in the world and don't look at anything that's negative because you're going to feed that and give power to it. That's not what it means. That means, you know what you're feeding? In that instance, if you want to do that, you're feeding ignorance. And that's what's going to grow. It's the exact opposite that the New Agers want you to believe that it is. By ignoring the negative, you are ensuring that more of it occurs. You are fueling it by ignorance. This is what you're giving your energy to. This is what you're focused upon. This is what you actually care enough about to do, to spend your time on, to put your attention on, to manifest in the world. That's what I'm talking about as care. That's what generates our experience in the aggregate. Most people don't care about what's really happening. Therefore, it is an impossibility for us in the aggregate to change the direction of energy, to change the direction of consciousness, and ultimately to get what we say we want. That's how the real law of attraction works. Here's how it actually operates. The lost principle is the dynamic of care. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. What did I say we need to develop? The heart, mind, guts, right? Heart, mind, guts, in that order. Care comes first. You got to care enough to know, to develop the knowledge, okay? Then you got to act on it and put it into practice. Apply it. So that's the order. Heart, mind, guts. Care, knowledge, action. Those are the steps. And all 3 of those have to be in place. That's what unity consciousness is. It's unifying thoughts, emotions, and actions. The 3 aspects of consciousness, such that there is no contradiction between them. Our thoughts, what we say, what we think, how we feel, and how we act are one and the same. There's no contradiction. That's unity consciousness. Therefore, Care is the driver of our thoughts and actions. It ultimately can be seen as the generator of the quality of our shared experience here on the earth. Care is what generates the whole thing. Hence, it has been called the generative principle. Liken the heart to a pump in the body. Well, what does a pump do? It's a generator. It provides energy. It moves the life force through the blood in the body. In every ancient tradition, they talked about the life force being in the blood. The heart is what pumps that through the whole physiology and enables us to continue to sustain life. As important as the brain is, which we just talked about the importance of it, the heart is ultimately what's generating the experience, because what we care about determines what we think about on a daily basis most of the time, and therefore how we behave.
Okay, I let this video play because he hit a lot of points. One in particular was the heart-mind coherence, or the heart-mind connection. And I talk about this all the time because this is like one of the most important aspects in this time right now. In graduation, it's graduation. We're in a stellar activation cycle. We're in the time of ascension, where the graduating class moves ahead. I stress this all the time because most people are not making the heart-mind connection. They think that just gathering information, gaining information is enough. It's not enough if you're not incorporating the information or actually internalizing the information. It has to be integrated. Once you get it in your heart that you want this information, you start researching because you care about it. He showed you that. Then it becomes a desire. You want to know more. That's, I think, what do they show? Heart and then the mind. Okay, so that's you studying, that's you researching. But a lot of people stop right there. They do not go further to the gut. And he explained it as action. Because when you actually put your information into work, remember in the beginning I explained how information plus experience equals wisdom. That's what he just explained. Information plus experience, meaning that you're actually going to now start doing it because it has been integrated in you and you begin to have a true change. This is where true transformation takes place. If you are just taking in information and you are not integrating it, then you are just a clinging symbol. You are just talking, regurgitating, going through the motions. You're talking the talk, but not walking the walk. So there is a divine fail-safe in place to filter out the people who have not truly had a change. In other words, you like Pinocchio. You have to have a real heart. You have to gain a real heart in order to become a real boy. Okay? You have to get a real heart and be a real caring, compassionate person in order to gain ascension, in order to be considered a chosen one to move forward through evolution. You have to remember the divine is looking for the cream of the crop, and they're not being selective. You are. You become chosen by the things that you do, by your actions and behaviors. And when you care, you change your actions and behaviors.